get stuck in where we're at. We can't get stuck in what we think might be the good old days, because that limits the days that we have in front of us. And it also limits the way we view the people who are coming in front of us too. And so I wanted us to be challenged by that, to be challenged by your continual growth in knowing who God is in your life. And sometimes that means we get out of our comfort zone so that others might know what it means to know Jesus. And sometimes it means to stand firm in your convictions so that some know the importance of what salvation looks like for Jesus. And so I wanted us to get there. And if you want to look back over that, George did a great job. It's online. Check it out. Part of today is going to be pretty academic for us. I want you to leave here with some extra tools in your tool bag. And we're going to learn what it means to push past our pain. Today we're not going to be erasing the pain that we have in our lives or that we have that makes us operate, which is basically the baggage that we bring into everyday situations. But instead, we're going to learn how to be aware of it, and we're going to learn how to self-regulate and to be better in our marriages, to be better with our children, to be better in our relationships, to be better mindset as we approach church, all these different things. So we're going to do that today. So since it's going to be kind of deep, maybe a tiny bit heavy, we have to start the right way. So I remember hearing this story about a minister. He was turning 50. And so the church decided for his 50th birthday they were going to buy him a new suit. And so the very next week, to show his appreciation to his congregation, he got up in front of everybody and made an announcement which shocked them the whole day. He said, "Today, I want you all to know that I will be preaching in my birthday suit." I don't know. That one's not as good as others. But at least you had to pause and think, I got this since you're good. You're welcome for that. That should make it easier for us to hear some things today. So, hey, we're going to be in the book of Ephesians chapter 4. And we're going to start with understanding our past hurt. Understanding what makes us operate. And a lot of times we don't know this ourselves until we start to bring it up and talk about it. So I'm going to read a scripture. I'm going to share some things. I have a couple of diagrams. And if you want these things later, I can send it to you. It's deeper than what I'm giving you. So what I'm giving you today is the tip of the iceberg of just something that will maybe help you in your, like I said, when you're in a struggle, you can pull this out and use this as a tool. But if you want the deeper understanding of what I'm going to give you today, I can shoot you some information. We're going to be talking about understanding our past hurt. Paul starts to talk to the church of Ephesus, and he shares some things to remind them about who they used to be and how they are not called to be those people anymore. And as children of God and the understanding of followers of Christ, we are actually challenged to do something. And so we're going to talk about that. And I hope when you leave today, you'll have a better grip of yourself. And I think that's the most important. We stand with Christ. So it says, "I tell you this, and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to the sensuality so as to indulge in their every kind of impurity, and they are full of greed." And it kind of goes on. It just talks about this is where you were. You're not called to do this life anymore. If I asked you about your story, what makes you operate when you feel like your buttons are getting pushed, what feelings do you have? There are some things that are going to come up. So I want to share something real quick, little story, and I think it'll help. I think the only way to really make it genuine is to just share my own. So let's do it. So in life, especially with my spouse or with my children or in a relationship with somebody that's close, there's a guarantee that someone is going to push one of my buttons. And the buttons that will get pushed for me the most are when I feel in a certain way. And these feelings are not going to be like when I feel angry or when I feel upset. It's not that. That's kind of a coping mechanism we use. What it's going to be is, for me, and most of you know this, we share this story a lot. For me growing up, I lost my dad young. And I had an anger issue there because of feeling lost and kind of feeling alone. And And later that grew into other things. So there's people in my life that stepped up and became role models for me, who also made some mistakes along the way. And I have this feeling that comes along with me of feeling either as a failure or feeling alone or all these different things. In a relationship, if somebody makes me feel that way, I will respond in a certain way. And we all do. We have 4 responses that we have. I'm going to click over to a slide. I want you to see, it might be hard for you to read because I took a picture of a piece of paper. That's technology, friends. But these are our 4 responses that we have. If you look at the bottom, there's 4 responses. One is to place blame. And when you look at this, these are kind of the coping skills that come with placing blame. It talks about getting angry or being sarcastic or I can't read that. Oh, I have it right in front of me. Silly. Yeah, silly. Oh, yes. You're feeling like a failure. I might start blaming you for my issues. It says blame or rage. And if you have been one of these people, your first instinct when you feel like your button is getting pushed is to push blame onto somebody else and possibly get angry. Okay? So it says anger, sarcasm, being arrogant. Some of you remember me as a kid. You're starting to go, yes, yes. It's not just as a kid. Fault finding, being harsh, threatening, or retaliatory. These are things that we operate with. If somebody is pushing against one of those insecurities or those feelings that we have, we respond in this kind of way. Or maybe you are this one. Shame. You become negative or hopeless or egocentric. You're unhappy. You're disrespectful. You're inconsolable and you're very needy. Maybe this is your response to one of those buttons being pushed. Or maybe some of you might get this one. You become controlling. You get really critical. You start performing and you become a perfectionist, or you don't like to be vulnerable and you close up and you get critical and you judge and you demand and you get suspicious about things. Maybe that's how you respond when your buttons are being pushed. Maybe that's how you react when you're feeling attacked or when you're feeling this need of being unworthy or whatever it is. And the last one is an interesting one too. Before I finish this last one, you may hit every one of these categories. So I don't want you to feel like you are only one of these, but you might have one that you go to first. The last one is escape or chaos. You get irresponsible, you disconnect, maybe you're addicted to something, you get numb, you become out of control or unreliable, and in a weird way you become selfish. You just withdraw into yourself. And sometimes that escape you withdraw to punish, or sometimes you withdraw so you don't have to deal with the conflict. You're escaping the conversation, right? You're escaping it, or you're trying to make it where they feel distant from you. This happens in different ways. So when we are living within our pain, you have something in you that is a painful situation, and it doesn't have to be crazy deep. It really doesn't. In our marriage retreat, when we were talking about some of these things, she talked about a guy who was very athletic his whole life. He was always on the basketball team. He was really good. People looked to him as the star. Well, in 7th grade, that's when he stopped growing. So come high school, everybody else took off in growth, and he did not. By the time his senior year came around, he didn't even make the team, and he felt like a failure. He felt left out. He felt unworthy. And so that was his beginning of his pain cycle. When he felt those feelings of unworthiness, it brought him back to that moment. And whenever he was feeling those buttons being pushed, he would respond in a way that would be anger, blame, or shame. Some of our pain cycle starts in deeper places than others. And some of us, maybe it's not as big of a deal, but you still can't come out of it on your own. I want to challenge you with something, and this is kind of what it looks like in a circle here. Ooh, that's not what you're supposed to see yet. Don't look at it. I'm only the one looking at that. I'm glad I caught that. When we have these moments, it ends up going like this with somebody. I'll just use my wife for an example because we get along. If I feel like she's pushing one of my buttons and I respond in blame, rage, or whatever, then she's going to have a feeling. And that feeling is probably going to lead to a pain cycle, not one of peace, because I'm probably being a jerk. And she's probably going to have a feeling too. And guess what she's going to cope with that feeling. Maybe she's feeling like unwanted because I'm being negative. Maybe her response is going to be in a controlling way where she starts getting critical at me. And when she starts getting critical at me, maybe I start to feel like a failure. How am I going to respond back to my wife? Maybe I'm going to place the blame. Maybe I'm going to withdraw. What is that going to do to her again? Do you see the cycle? Do you see what ends up happening in us? If we don't learn how to self-regulate, we get caught in a vicious pain cycle. And can I throw this out there? Majority of the time, you all who are in this crowd are good people. You are good. If you look to the person next to you, if you came with them, you are probably most of the time good to them. But when you are bad, you are probably all bad. Can we get there? Can we agree with that? When you are bad, you're probably all bad because guess what? Your pain is pain. You cannot avoid the fact that you have a life that brought you something. You can't. And today I'm not going to tell you how to erase that because you can't. But what I am going to challenge you with is this. It is not the responsibility of the other person to get you out of your pain cycle. They are not equipped to do it. Even if your spouse you've been married to for 50 years, they are not your mom. They're not your dad. They're not responsible to get you out of your pain cycle. We are called in this scripture to do it not really ourselves, but do it with the help of the Holy Spirit and through Christ. Because when we accept Christ, we take on a new self. Our old self has to be learned to get put away. And we're going to read that here. So I'm going to fast forward you past the slide because I don't need to see it. All right. When we continue on into Ephesians, Paul challenges them with something, and I want you to think about this and just take it in. And maybe you're going to reflect on this later, but let's look at it, and then we'll come back. That, however, is not the way of life that you learned. When you heard about Christ and were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and to be made what? New. And this is the big one. In what? Everybody. You have to change the way you think. You are being made new in the way that your thought process is working to put on a new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. That sounds impossible. However, God works with impossibilities. He tells you, and you read this again, right? How many of us, when you read that, you thought immediately of Romans chapter 12? You know? No? You live in sacrifices, holy and true. This is your true act of worship. Do not conform to the world, but be what? Transformed by the renewing of your mind. This mystical thought of renewing your mind. We are called to put on a new self, being renewed. When we accept Christ, we are giving him this ability to work within us, to help transform who we are to be more like him. When we get caught in our pain cycle, we are getting caught in what? What's happening to our minds? We are going back and being corrupted by what our old self wants. If I feel unwanted, which is a lie that Satan is using within me, I am going to act in a way to get my desires met, even though those desires are false. If I'm feeling unloved, I'm going to show you what unloved looks like until you love me again. Wow. Or I'm going to hold back forgiving you until you earn yourself my forgiveness. And then when we do that to somebody, they go, oh, fine. I'm going to withdraw. And I'm going to let you see what it looks like to be by yourself. The couch is very comfortable. I will see you in 3 days. We do these things because Satan is good at getting you to think that you are right and that person is wrong. That I'm not being needed, so you have to find a way to come and fix my problems. If you are always looking for the other person that you are in conflict with or in pain with to fix your problems, you are looking in the wrong place. Today I want to challenge you to see what it looks like to learn to self-regulate. to be accountable for you. Chuck Swindoll made this, I say Chuck, we're close. Charles. He gave a quote that says, the older I get, the more I realize that life is 10% about what happens to me and 90% about the way I respond to it. You have the ability, through the Holy Spirit, through practice. I have to use a line from Allen Iverson here. We are talking about practice. Not when you're in the situation, but practice. That's over half your heads. All my basketball people, they know what I'm talking about. That kid did not practice, and he was great. But we're talking about practice. In order for your mind to be renewed, you have to practice this. So think about this. The next time you get in an argument with your spouse or your kid or a coworker or whatever, pick it apart, and maybe you'll, a couple days later, you'll say, wow, I really responded out of pain, that I felt like unloved, like I didn't have a good relationship with my dad, and maybe that brought up some old things in me that made me feel like I was unwanted or unloved. That coworker had no idea what they were getting into when they said that one word that triggered me off. Or that spouse. Go back and figure it out. We're going to talk about how to do that in a second. For us to get out of our pain cycle, if you want to know what a pain cycle looks like, we're going to reverse this. Where it says truth, it's going to say feeling. And that feeling is what I talked about, so it's going to be opposite of this. Where it says love, you're going to feel unloved. This is a pain cycle. This is going to be your peace cycle. Your pain cycle would say unloved, unworthy, not man enough, maybe. And your action would be the opposite of these things. Controlling, not feeling good about yourself, whatever. To get into our peace cycle, we have to change this around. We said our deceitful desires is what we used to be. And when we take on a new self, we're renewing our minds. We're renewing our attitude. The truth of the matter is, when you are feeling unloved and you're looking at your spouse who you know loves you, can you say the truth? The truth is, I am loved. I want to show us, man, am I getting there too early? Take a mental picture of this. When we get into this peace cycle, then your spouse or your coworker or your kid, they're going to have a different feeling too. And they're going to start feeling the opposite of what they normally would, which is maybe I'm not alone. Maybe I'm safe in God's economy and I can just rely on that. I don't have to depend on somebody else. We're teaching some behaviors here, but we're starting to learn them ourselves. I'm going to delve into this deeper here in a moment. We got to keep going. This is the important part. So if you don't take any of the other things home, this is going to kind of pull it all together. And like I said, this is such a blip of what the whole thing is, but I'm going to hopefully bring it all together here. Ephesians 4:25-32 says this, therefore each of you must put off, let's say these things together. Put off, what's this? Falsehood and speak to your neighbor. And that neighbor can be put in anybody here, okay? For we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. This is important for spouses. Do not let the sun go down on you while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Here we go. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work doing something useful in their own hands. This is basically just, the rest of it is, this is how you start to change who you are. Your old way, you can't do it anymore. Your new way is something different. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful to building others up according to their needs, that it may be beneficial to those who listen. Okay. I want to push this forward just for a second. You should look through this. These are good things. It talks about taking out malice and brawling and all these things with other people. And then it talks about being compassionate, learning to be compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. Okay. In order for us to get into our peace cycle, we have to do these 4 simple steps. They are simple in thought, not simple when it comes to you're in the midst of battle and you think, I got to pull up these 4 simple steps. You might start doing this well after you got into a blowout. But let's think about it. If we started with this, studies show that your brain just does what it knows. If your whole life has been geared to still operate in this way that we've been talking about, when somebody pushes a button, you jump into a pain cycle, and usually your brain goes to negativity first. It's weird. This is what studies just show. And this is rooted into your midbrain. where it's just there. When we need to have something that we can pull quickly, to have this quick access to it, we need to get into our frontal cortex. This is how we do it. You have to speak some things out loud. It pulls it out, and it goes back in, and now it's being registered up front. The first thing you have to do is say what you feel. And one of the stories that our team shared with us was about this couple. They are MFTs, anyways. They moved from West Texas to Pasadena, and when they moved to Pasadena, they wanted to find a new church. They looked all over the place to find a new church, and they stopped at this one. It was a big church. It had, entertaining music, and the speaker was dynamic, and all these different things. And when she and her husband left, they did what you do. It's the visitor question, which is, how'd you like it? So he asked her, and she said, oh, I loved it. I loved the music. I loved the energy. I loved the minister. I loved it. We can go here. And then she asked him the question, so what'd you think? How do you think he responded? I can never go here. I do not like it. What do you think she responded with? If you wanted to know her pain cycle, it's feeling alone and feeling unloved, because that's how she felt in her family, alone and unloved and unworthy. She felt alone and unloved in that moment, and she spouted out at her husband, you don't even care about me or my feelings. These are people who are, like, by trade, marriage and family therapists. But when we are in pain, we are in pain. And she said, 2 days later, I was thinking about that moment. I wish I could have took it all back, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I was responding out of pain. I felt unloved. So she said what she felt. I really felt unloved. And she said what she would normally do, what I normally would do when I feel unloved or alone, is I become controlling and very critical. So she had to speak the truth to herself. Do you remember in Ephesians where it said, speak the truth to one another? She had to do it to herself. I felt alone, and what I would normally do would be critical and controlling. But the truth of the matter is I'm not alone. There are many people here who love me. God loves me. My husband loves me. The truth of the matter is I'm not alone. He's with me, and I'm not unloved. My husband has shown me over and over again the sacrifices he's willing to make for myself and my family. I have to speak the truth to get myself out of what I would normally feel, what I would normally do. And then what would you do differently? In a moment like this, I would love, if this was more of a class environment, I would tell you we should probably sit around and talk to each other about what got us to where we're at. Right? Last week we talked about that. Sometimes we glorify our past and we forget what we had to overcome to get out of it to be where we're at. And sometimes we go straight back to it because it's our comfort, and it causes some damage with us and with the people around us. When you leave today and you're with the people you love and you find yourself feeling a little bit more controlling than normal, maybe a little bit more critical on your kids, it's weird how my pain cycle with my kids is completely different than my pain cycle with my wife. With my wife, because I'm feeling different there. Maybe it's a feeling of unworthiness or a failure. I respond to her differently. With my kids, with my wife, maybe it's more blame. With my kids, it's more controlling, critical, because I feel that I feel them, not that I'm a failure. Do you see what I'm saying? We have to get there and say this truth to ourselves. We need to live within it. And when I say it's about practice, because when you're in the heat of the moment, you are not going to pull this out. You just aren't. How many of you remember the pilot Sully? What did Sully do? Where did he land that plane? In the Hudson. Guess what he did before he landed that plane in the Hudson? He freaked out. He didn't go, sweet, I got this. You know what he did? He freaked out. But you know what he remembered? He told himself the truth. I practiced this. I know what I'm supposed to do. I can do this. You know what I would have done? We're all going to die. Everybody, we're all dead. Just hold on tight. If you haven't accepted Christ, let's do this now. There is water that we're going to. You will be baptized. We're all making it to heaven. Hold on. He didn't do that. He remembered his training. He looked at his crew and he told them, we trained for this. We're not dying today. We're going to make this. When you practice something, and you practice it a lot, and you can be okay with going back and saying, I messed up. I was feeling this way, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have acted that way. I hope that I can get to this place where I can understand that even when adversity comes, and I know that I'm loved. Even if the person that you were in an argument with doesn't love you, guess what? You're still loved. You have a God that loves you, that he won't leave you, he won't forsake you, that he's with you. That when you are in God's economy, that it is enough for you. It should be enough for you. That is a truth. You're never alone. You're never unworthy. You're never alone. You're not a failure, even when you fail. There's room in God's economy for you. There is. We have to practice this. And my hope is maybe it's like 2 weeks down the road, you go, oh, dude, I totally remember that was not what I meant to do. And then maybe the next time it's like a week later. And then maybe the next time it's like a couple of days later. The hope being that then when it comes up, you like Sully, who's about to land a plane in the Hudson, can go, I know my training here. I know what I practice. I know what I'm feeling inside. And I know it's not the right thing for me to present to my spouse, to my kids, to my partner, to my church family. Because some of you might come in and you were hurt by the church before, and somebody accidentally said something to you that brought those pains back, and you are working right out of that pain cycle, and you're like, I ain't ever coming here again. We'll see how they like it when I don't give it in the communion trays anymore. And you withdraw, and then you've been waiting for somebody to like come and save you and say, you know, oh, it was all our fault, we're sorry. But guess what? We can't operate this way. We have to be able, through the gift of God's grace and his Holy Spirit and his love for us, to be able to control what is in here on our own without relying on the people around us to fix us. Now, as married people, should we be able to trust and rely on the love of our spouses? I would hope so. But even in that love and trust, you can still get let down, even when they're not trying to. Like I said, it's not their job. They're not fully equipped to fix the pain that you have brought in years before you even met your spouse. They just aren't there. And for some of you, the only person that maybe could help you there might not even be alive anymore. We have to learn to use this power that God has given us inside of us, this gift of the Holy Spirit, to start renewing our way of thinking, our minds, the way that we respond, to find some form of peace in our life. And like I said, but more often, you guys are this way. I don't want to throw you under the bus. I don't want to throw myself there. But there are times when we're bad, we're bad. And that's Satan at work. And guess what? He's good at what he does. And we are not good at controlling ourselves. We get stuck there. I heard a little bit in the morning, we were talking about pride and stuff in class. That's a big part of it. But there's a lot more to it for us when we're dealing with these things. So the first thing is being aware of where you're at. Knowing where your pain comes from. Speaking it out. Challenging yourself by saying, this is what I feel, this is what I'm normally going to do, but I know the truth because I was baptized into that truth. I know the truth because I've accepted it through Jesus. I know the truth that as much as I know that I'm not important, I'm important to God. As much as I feel like a failure, He came for me. He loves me. I'm not unworthy. What I would do different now is I need to work on my self-control. I need to work on, there's a list, and I would love to just give you guys all this information. So if you want it, I'll email it to you, or I'll make copies. It's really simple. It's a simple idea, right? When we're stuck in our pain, we're going to get stuck in our pain. If we want to have a peaceful, peacemaking life, we have to do some steps to get us there. Practice, practice, practice. Pray about it. Give it to God. That when your tragedy comes up and life looks bleak, you remember your training, and it works. It works. We want to delve in deeper to this ever. If this is just like something that you think, this could be great for me, but let's talk about a way to do that. First, I can give you the material, but I would love to just share what they shared with us completely. But I hope this is like a good Cliff Note version for you to take with you, to challenge yourselves. Let's have better marriages. Even if your marriage is good, wouldn't you want to have a better one? Let's start there. How many of you would love to have a better relationship with your kids? Let's do some things. How many of you like to have better relationships with each other? We can do this. Better relationships at work. This can happen. And when we do that, guess what we're doing for the kingdom? Man, we're representing it in an amazing way. We can show the power of God. That guy used to blow up all the time. What's different? He's not that way anymore. Or I always felt like I was hurting that person's feeling, and they would take off and never see him again. But they're around and we're talking, and I feel just better. This is what we can do. Not alone, through the gift of the Holy Spirit, but not necessarily with the help of the people who you think you need it from. We can do this. Let's pray about it, and then hopefully that moves us forward. Let's go to God in prayer. Then, Father, Lord, you're an amazing God, and we're flawed, just really flawed people. Sin in this world it's tough for us to shake. In our past lives, some of us have some tough ones. Some of us have some that may not feel as tough as others, but we still have some baggage that we bring with us. And God, I pray you help us through your Holy Spirit, like help us to transform our minds through just living in your truth. That you love us, that you never will leave us, you never forsake us, that you put people in our lives, good or bad, but for us to, whatever it is, they're there for a reason for us to show you off. And I pray that we just do it by seeking peace. And understanding our pain, you didn't want for us. You didn't plan for that to happen. And one day you will take all that away. But help us to learn what that looks like, even here on earth, by living in your truth completely. We need your help for that. And I pray that as we spread this great peace that you have offered us through your Son, that the world can be better, but that more importantly, the kingdom can be more full by the example that we're leading that brings people to you. And you're an amazing, awesome God. We thank you for the love that you give us. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen. If you're outside of Christ and you want to know what it means to be a part of